What's going on, guys? Welcome to In the Zone. I'm your host, Garrison Roy, and today we are going to go on a little bit of a rant. This rant's going to be maybe a little bit, controversial. We'll find out. But if you're new to the episode, new to the podcast, right? Rants are when I just go on to vent and discuss some hot topics, call out some BS, or maybe just speak my mind on a couple things, right? Full-length interviews are those full-length conversations with experts, athletes, and coaches. You guys might see snippets of those on Instagram or X or TikTok, right? And then you also have mental minutes, those quick mental game hacks to help elevate your performance and also help with your overall mental health with some of those as well too, right? And the deep dive educational explorations, which are those small intricacies to help you get into the zone, whether that's in the strike zone, whether that's swinging of balls in the zone, whether that's you being a coach in your particular niche or what zone that you particularly work athletes with, or maybe even a specialist or anything of that nature that we just talk about your particular zone and how you help people get in their zone, or even just share how you got in your personal zone as a player, parent, whatever it might be, right? That's what we're going over. But if you have anything that you want, maybe there's different zones that I haven't touched on before, right? I want you guys to submit those, submit questions, topics, guest suggestions, anything you think of. Maybe even you just want to drop a comment. Hey, I'm all for it too. Hit that text button right underneath there. It says text now. And if you're listening on YouTube, just hit the comments. Either one works for me. But appreciate you guys coming in. So now we're going to go into a little bit of a rant on my problem that I have with plyo balls. Now, if you listen to me for a while, you know that there's certain particular plyo drills that I've never really been a fan of. One of those being in particular the reverse throw. This bad boy is a 4-pounder. If you're listening, I'm holding up a big old school 4-pound tap plyo ball that I had way back in the day. I would take this and rip it, throw it back. Needless to say, that probably cost me a lot of stuff. And now that we know one of my previous episodes as well, if you guys are following along, would love for you to go back and listen to this. If not, but on episode 223, debunking hand grip dynamometry for TJ risk, they actually found that those flexor digitorum and profundus, these three fingers that you would grip a fastball with, actually decrease in strength when you do reverse throws. I don't know how many they used in for that study, but I thought that was really, really interesting. So personally, I'll leave it up to the athletes now. Hey, if you want to do reverse throws, cool, go for it. Right. But obviously I think over the last 5 years, everybody knows what plyo balls are now. And they've been kind of a little bit of a stench early on. They were like, oh, why are you doing plyo balls? And people were going against the grain because they were even doing them. And now everyone does them. And now everyone has their own spin on what they want to have for plyos and different types of drills and throwing a bunch of stuff on the wall and seeing what sticks, literally and figuratively. Right. Seen some crazy ones where they're doing plyo balls with bells and whistles, and I'm sure you guys have probably seen the video with the guy who makes fun of all the pitching drills where he's throwing water bags, throwing plyo balls all over the place, throwing it off the trampoline, just completely off the wall stuff, right? But the biggest thing that I want to touch on just in plyos in general, main reason why I'm starting to kind of wean away from those. And again, I'm not hating on them completely. I think there is a time and place for them, but reason why I'm doing them less or even not even assigning them to athletes that have never done before is because it's very decontextualized. What is that fancy word? Decontextualized. Well, that really means that it's not a lot like the sport, right? It's already pretty specific enough whenever you're throwing a baseball, throwing off speed, throwing whatever it is, right? But if you can't tell me the goal of why you're trying to do something and you're just doing plyos because it's like, hey, we're doing pivot picks and 10 toes or name any type of drill list out there, and you can't, as the athlete, tell me what you're working on or what you're trying to do there, then you're defeating the purpose of what they're trying to even help you with. If you're just going through the motions, right, in anything really, that's terrible, right? So that's number one, is how decontextualized it is. You're throwing into a wall. The distance is really, really close. which leads me to my second one, which can cause a lot of guys to cut the ball. So if they're coming here and they're getting ready to throw it and they try to throw it right in front of their face, just so it bounces back really well. So they're essentially being super lazy so they can catch it as soon as they finish. Versus if they continue to stay behind it, it's depending on how close you are to the wall, that point on where it hits the wall should probably be a little bit more offset or a little bit more towards your arm side where you would release the ball. Now, if you're further away, that kind of hones in a little bit more. And I love what Lance Wheeler did. He put a post about this out, and I'll have to find it and put it in the show notes for you guys. But he drew a line that was basically in line with the guy's arm slot. And he's put a number on that line from the wall, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think he went up to 4 or 5 numbers. And he basically gave him a target to throw to each time. And I think that's brilliant because sometimes guys are just mindlessly throwing into a wall, not really having a target. And I think if you have some type of target to go for, it's better than nothing, right? And if you're working on something and you're trying to feel something out, that's one thing. Get that feel and then immediately go try to contextualize it, right? Try to go gamify it, make it as game-like as possible. Hop on the mound, go play catch with someone, right? Something to where you're not just in front of a plyo wall for hours and hours and hours and all of your throwing volume is there. And then by the time you even go and pick up a baseball, you're toast and you got nothing else left, right? That's what you definitely want to avoid, especially in season. You want to steer clear away from that, right? Also, the other one that I have with also on that same topic of cutting the baseball, it's really on how the plyos are made, right? So this is just kind of a generic driveline underload ball, just to kind of show you emphasis. Like if a guy really squeezes this, right, you can see the indentation. Guys are really muscling up and they get here. And then again, that leads to corruptive movement patterns, which is the second one versus the baseball, right? Obviously a lot stiffer. Even if they squeeze the crap out of it, that ball's not really budging very much versus a plyo ball will. And you can say, oh, hey, you can just blow it up, or there's different balls that aren't going to be as squishy. Okay, fine. Or you could say the new Marv balls, they have stitches on them. I feel like they're less durable than some of the other ones because of those stitches. But, you know, take it however you want. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm not endorsing them nor knocking them down. I'm just saying some of the pitfalls or the problems with plyos. Okay. So those are the other two ways of like, because of the task that you're giving the athlete, causing the cut, or what the athlete is physically trying to do and muscle up or try to do things that can also have them cut the ball by squeezing the crap out of it, right? From that, right, like I said, kind of spinning off into my third point, it's corruptive movement patterns. If some of these plyo drills or whatever, and I've talked about this before and getting away from the drill phenomenon of having a drill for everything, right? Sometimes you just got to throw a guy out there and have them get on the mound and start to learn how to adapt and adjust. But the biggest one that I have the issue with is the pivot picks, or what was in my day called the Marshall, right? Mike Marshall was the one who came up with this. And I would love to show you guys a video of that, by the way. Check that out in the show notes. But Mike Marshall was a guy who he literally had like 20-pound wrist weights, and that's where the wrist weight thing all came in. He was all about pronation. Okay, so the teach of this was to get here, allow your arm to learn how to go from full supination to full pronation, right? Spin it however you want. That's essentially what his original theory was trying to go for. To take stress off the arm, take stress off the UCL, because when you pronate and they say, hey, you see a quarterback, you don't see very many UCLs because they have to pronate when they throw and they're going from supination to full pronation. But the corruption with this is a lot of guys will get here and they'll do something completely different, right? They'll do this thing where they're like lifting their arm up and it's not even a normal arm swing. And then all of a sudden they lead with their elbow and then they just fully go into full supination. Their bicep is already super activated. And all of a sudden, whenever they start to come into that release, then it's fully pronated, right? And then as soon as they get the baseball in their hand, they're like, do I do the same thing? Or, right, it's a completely different movement. And it can corrupt certain movements if you're not careful, and if you're trying to do that and they don't know how to differentiate the plyo drill from the actual throws, they could get really super far in with their arm or have some weird throwing arm action, get here, get really pushy with the elbow, which once you hold a baseball in your hand, it could lead to a lot of extra additional elbow stress because it's just a tricep extension, right? At that point, you're getting here and you're just flinging your arm out, lead to a lot of elbow slamming and things like that as well, versus learning how to efficiently do that. Okay, so again, not bashing plyos as a whole, but there are problems that you need to address and make sure that you're not falling into those, having any issues arise because of how you're doing plyos or how often you're doing plyos or the corrupt movement patterns that you're getting from whatever type of plyo drill that you're trying to do. Okay, and obviously the last one being there's no mound. You could say that that goes back to number one, but most plyo walls that I see at fields, they're going to be behind the pitcher's mound. A lot of guys are throwing on flat ground, right? The environment is completely different. There's no batter in the box, right? Again, probably could circle this back to number one of being decontextualized, but that's just my biggest things with it, right? You got to learn how to use them as training wheels. Again, training wheels, learn how to get a particular movement down if you're trying to throw or trying to get a particular move down, something that you're working on in your mechanics and you don't want to have to deal with errant throws that are flying all over the place. Maybe plyo balls are a great place to start. Or maybe you're starting out a rehab throwing program. Okay, cool. Maybe you do that just to allow yourself to kind of learn how to feel how to throw a ball again, right? There's a bunch of different ways to do that, in my opinion, but don't get caught into the trap of thinking that plyo balls or any type of drill is going to solve your problem, because it's not, right? Ideally, what's really going to help you become a better baseball player is throwing a baseball. Go figure, right? We're not going to get being a better ballerina by playing the piano, or we're not going to, go try to learn how to drive a NASCAR and then also, I don't know, just throw anything out there, learn how to play the guitar. Okay. Like they're totally different skills. And why I don't really like to harp on guys who just elevate, like, oh, hey, I need to throw my, my 7-ounce plyo at X amount of velocity or this, and this. I'm like, dude, you're missing the point. Yes, if that's what it's going to take to help you elevate your velocity, maybe. But at the end of the day, no one cares how hard you throw into a wall. You don't play wall ball. You play baseball. Now, if you're all of a sudden coming out with this new sport and it's like, hey, who can rip a plyo ball the hardest? Maybe that could be the next Olympics games. I don't freaking know. But until that day, you guys will be getting scholarships. You'll be getting paid to throw the white thing with stitches on it. So maybe you probably want to do more throws with that. That's it for me on this rant episode. If you know someone who needs to hear this, please share it with them and stay in the zone.